All is truly indeed a blessing this Saturday. Come on in. Welcome, my family. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome, my children. Come on in. Brothers and sisters, come on in. All is a blessing. She's calling your name to win. Come back home to Africa. The fatty calf and golden rain are waiting for you once again. Yes, coming back to you. I'm longing for my family, coming back to you. Out of bondage and now I am free. Da 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 da. Greetings, beloved. Tangerine Bliss, I love your name, Tangerine Bliss. Come on in. All is a blessing, yes, this Saturday edition of Revolutionary Voodoo. New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. We're going to have a power lunch today. Come on in. All is a blessing. All is a blessing. Greetings wherever you are. Come on in. I'm humbled. I'm honored. Thank you so much, Egypt, for listening. Ethiopia, for listening. India, thank you so much. Yes. Pakistan, thank you so much. Yemen, Arab Emirates, thank you. Come on in, Kenya, come on in. Come on in, South Africa, yes. Cameroon, come on in. Come on in, Ghana, come on in. Welcome, Niger, come on in. Yes, all is a blessing. Greetings and salutations, peace and love, joy and prosperity. Come on in, welcome. Greetings, come on in. Wherever you are listening right now in the world, I'm humbled, I'm honored, I'm appreciative. Thank you so much. Come on in, America. Come on in, South America. Come on in, Cuba. All is a blessing. Come on in. Welcome, greetings, and salutations. The coldest coming in from Cleveland. Thank you so much. Greetings. Got a lot of family in Ohio. Peace and love this holiday season. Come on in. Come back home. Come on back in, y'all. Come on home. Come back home. On this Jose Shango. Come back home, y'all. Come on home. Yes. Come back home, y'all. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, greetings and abundance, prosperity. Bethlehem, PA. Come on in, beloved. Welcome, greetings and salutations. I always like to start the show with this little prayer, this little mantra, this reverberation. Eshu alegwana kosi weri, awum oluto ni iwo ada afanbo osi. Obatalami ita ni Igbo Onilio Avani Eshu. Eshu is the respected elder who flogs, confronts, and uncovers fools. That one versed in mysteries uses truth to own you. He causes scatter to feed poverty. Obatala shakes rascals to have sacrifice. The owner of warnings is the one who is Eshu. Aborbu, Aboye, Aboshishe, Ashe. May our Ebo reach our rune. May our Ebo be accepted. May our Ebo allow what we desire to come to pass. And so we say, Ashe. Divine, all blessed, peace and love, joy and prosperity, serenity and tranquility this Saturday. You are now listening live to the Divine Prince, Pan-African spiritualist, practitioner, author and advisor, Elagun Oloye Hoodoo Obeya Bokur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo world spiritualist perspective, understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, for it's all just an illusion and a test and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is my constant prayer, my mantra, affirmation, reverberation, reiteration, and my ever-living reality. It is crucial to the very foundation of my understanding, my being, my walk, my works, my demonstration along this divine, all blessed life path and journey. It is how I, the Divine Prince, make sense out of all that we're challenged with here in our daily existence on Mother, Father, Earth. And it is my personal place of power and understanding. It is indeed the place from where I begin, the place from where I realize and crystallize all my endeavors, understanding that I and I alone create and co-create my divine destiny. And I alone create and co-create my divine, all blessed reality. And so it is. Ashe, Asheo, Ashe. Welcome this Saturday, December 12th, 2020. I rarely get an opportunity to do a Saturday show, a weekend show. It's been suggested and advised by some of our friends and family and some of my initiates and godchildren that I should do more weekend shows. And so I'm trying to bring about balance. I'm trying to readjust. And so I am here today to share with you this sacred space. And indeed, sacred space is critical to all that we do, all that we are, who we say we are, who we be, what we believe. It must exist in sacred space. Once you are no longer sacred, once your space is no longer sacred, once your body is no longer sacred, once your energy is no longer sacred to you, then you open the door for all manner of disrespect and violation. So the creation of sacred space is not just about ancestors, shrines, altars, ritual work, magic, but the ability, the awareness, the consciousness to be able to breathe and release sacred space wherever you might be at any specific moment in time space. It's real easy to do magic and to meditate and to be real hyper spiritual in the quietness and the stillness of our solitude, where there's no necessary weather, but once we step out into the world, once we step out into the weather, it is indeed then that our ability to create. Greetings, beloved everyone. Greetings. I didn't expect so many people on Saturday. Hoodoo occultism. Ori. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Ori Freetag. Ori Freetag. Greetings, beloved. Code is 216. Wendy Phillips. Case. Greetings, the Goddess Initiative. All is truly and indeed a blessing. Greetings to everyone present. No, I don't have a dog. You just tested the sensitivity of my mic. You hear a dog outside, on the sidewalk that lives next door. Now, she may have passed the house, so therefore the sound of the dog might have traveled in between the houses. Because we have fences here, so no one can just get in between our houses. So yeah, you heard a big barking dog that lives right next door, and she just happened to be passing outside. So my camera is pretty sensitive. I had no idea how sensitive it was. I was doing a reading here yesterday, and the house is being worked on. After the hurricane season, and so the ceramic tile on the roof is being repaired. The weatherboard on the side of this antique historic Treme house is being worked on and repaired. So I'm doing a reading, a consultation. We're in full Skype mode, cameras on, and they could not only hear the work going on outside, but they could actually hear the details of the conversation that was going on outside. So it's real interesting how much we have allowed technology into our space, into our world, and how we use it is critical, not only to Tangerine Bliss, the creation of sacred space, but personal space. Sometimes we forget about just personal space. And we know, you don't lean up on a stranger at the grocery store. You don't, walk up and grab someone you don't know's jewelry, even if you like it. We understand that. But I think in this virtual space, which is indeed more spiritual than physical, some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you go to that Facebook stream, that Twitter stream, one or two posts, and you in your feelings, you in your emotions. Okay. I don't think she would mind, but my mother's one of those people. She's sensitive to the politics of the day and sort of what's being said and expressed in that space. So the creation of sacred space, Tangerine Bliss, doesn't necessarily require shadow work in the moment, but absolutely it should be on your homework list. Absolutely, it should be a part of your daily maintenance. And I'm going to use the weekends to be a little bit more specific, a little bit more detailed, sometimes a little bit more personal. And so you cannot create sacred space if you're overburdened with shadow work. If you got unhealed traumas. Some of you meditate or attempt to meditate, and you lie down or you sit Indian style and you sit in your lotus position and you breathe and you release. And you breathe and you release. And then your grocery list comes up. Then what you forgot to do for your child for their play the next day pops up. That impending bill pops up. And those are important. So we stop and we breathe and then we take note. And the taking of the note tells the left brain, I acknowledge the importance of these details, but right now it's not the moment. And you breathe and you go back into your center, in your sacred space. But then once you get all of that stuff out of the way, then it gets personal. And that's why your meditations should be guided or directed. And what I mean by that is, you're either working in tandem with, an advisor, or a tape or recording that tells you when to breathe, that tells you what to visualize, that tells you what to let go, in the process. And I may create that one day. I've been told I need to create some apps. But also, you can decide, Tangerine, or anyone who's listening, to address the trauma, address the shadow work. So I separate that from just the creation of sacred space. You want to be prepared when you go into doing shadow work to just address shadow work. You can't do prosperity work, love and relationship work, health and wellness, perhaps, and shadow work at the same time, because you need to be free enough, objective enough to be able to be quiet and to be still in that moment and allow those visions, those feelings, those memories to come to the surface. Some of you know I'm working on a book right now, a personal autobiographical book. And one of the exercises that I do is I'm instructed to pick a date, pick a time, pick a season, and then remember. And then remember. So, do you remember your first day of school? Do you remember, what's the first Christmas you remember? What's the first memory that you can recall right now, whatever your age is, as far back as you can go? Those are the type of mind and third eye and spiritual exercises that help you, that lead to directly confronting shadow work and healing traumas. But you must be willing to be objective. See, because if you're full of anxiety and fear and trepidation, your own spirit guides will shut down those connections, those visions, that energy, as a means of sort of protecting ourselves. It's a spiritual denial. And so we forget. Before I came on air, I was watching a YouTube video. I like YouTube videos for all of their edifying and entertaining and historic nature. I was watching this video about a Black woman, born, raised, grew up in Germany. It's called Growing Up Black in Nazi Germany. Esther Anumu, A-N-U-M-U, Anumu Fordham. Esther Anumu Fordham, Growing Up Black in Nazi Germany by Frank Fitzgerald. It has almost 1 million views. You all really need to look at this video. She's a Black woman who was born October 9th, 1925 in Hamburg, Germany. She came of age during the Nazi era. And in December of 1995, she had this conversation with Frank Fitzgerald, and they produced this hour and 15-minute long video. So I'm not going to go into the video, but I'm going to talk about my emotional responses to it in terms of dealing with shadow work. And so I'm looking at her objectively, without judgment, in the third person, because I want to be able to hear what she's saying and feel what she's saying, but also be able to observe my feelings and my responses to what she's saying at the same time. And so I hear her demonstrating what I just spoke of, sort of this spiritual denial. And the producer, Frank, who's doing the video, obviously a white or European guy, kept pressing her on race, kept pressing her to share her experience on racism. And she was detached from that. She was almost completely detached from that. Even as he walked her into, okay, when did the Nazis show up? What did you know about what was happening? How did you feel about what was happening? When did they come show up at your school? He tried to take her to specific moments in time. And as you watch the film, she was either disconnected, in denial, or was just really, too young and didn't know. And there were times she said, at the time I didn't care. I didn't have a connection to that. I didn't understand the importance, and so I didn't remember certain things. But the things that he personalized. When did you first go to school? When did you first hear about the Nazis? When did you first realize you were different? When did you first realize that you had a spiritual gift? Those are the type of meditations and shadow work that lead to healing, confronting, addressing the traumas, and removing them. I've been told that I don't share my story enough. I've been told that if you all really understood my story, my voodoo would be more powerful to you. My presence here today would speak volumes. And so that's one of my own personal issues in terms of shadow work. Telling my story, being more open and organic about my story, and particularly the dark stuff, in a way that's beneficial to you and not just entertainment. Albany, Georgia. I don't recall. Voodoo occultism, I don't recall. It's Baba went to jail. It doesn't ring a bell. Oh, okay, the Goddess Initiative. All righty, because you know my question, what page am I on in the book? For my new listeners and my new viewers, I'm reading from the chat, if you didn't already know. What's being referenced by the Goddess Initiative is the magic of Marie Laveau, embracing the spiritual legacy of the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans. Magic of Marie Laveau, embracing the spiritual legacy of the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans by Denise Alvarado. And I haven't been very specific about the book. I've just announced it, I've introduced it, I've shared some links from time to time over the last few months. I've never said that I was in the book directly, which I am, but I never said it directly. But anytime someone said, "Oh, I read that book, I love that book, I consumed that book," my sort of Virgo, Labor Day Virgo, double numbered responses are always just a little bit shady, and something is hidden within them. And so I always ask, what page am I on in the book? And up until the last week or so, Neophyte Bocour and a few other people, have begun to be more specific about where they found me in the book. And I think that's important. The whole book is important, which is why I haven't gone a whole great detail into the book. I want you all to be curious enough, to be interested enough to purchase the book, to read the book for yourselves. And then we can have a discussion about what's in the book here in this space, with people who have a better understanding of what we're talking about and where I'm coming from. My footprint in her book has everything to do with who I am and what I do and what I represent and what my track record is, what my receipts speak to here in the city of New Orleans, and in the world. And before I give it away totally, it is about revolution, revolutionary hoodoo, New Orleans voodoo secrets and recipes. And so that encompasses politics, nationism, racism, but it also encompasses wellness, prosperity, health, empowerment, protection. How does a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old on the street with no job, no income, no family, no support survive? How do they survive? And how does that happen? How does that happen? I beg you, don't let it be you. Don't let it be the next generation. Don't cast out your child over race, over gender, over culture, over belief into the darkness, the savagery of this world. I'm supposed to be a statistic. I'm supposed to be a statistic. Some of you would have me to be a statistic. Even right now, today, some of you would have me to be a statistic. Some of you say, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be allowed. I shouldn't be able. I should be blocked here. I should be blocked there. I should be limited. And still over race, culture, class, shadeism, gender bias, prejudices. And many of the prejudices that we see being fostered and fed and fueled right now at the governmental level in our country. And that's important without falling into a political conversation. That is important because it has established and has set up sort of a boundary in terms of respect, in terms of morality, in terms of value. And more often than not, we're at the end of the line. We're at the bottom of the totem pole. Society rests on the shoulders of Black people, and particularly Black women. So don't get so disconnected that that's them over there thinking that it doesn't come back to you. I found the sister story growing up Black in Germany, in Nazi Germany, very interesting in terms of how she self-identified race, ethnicity, and her experience. And it shifted, as to be expected, from season to season, based on her age or what was actually happening within the country, within the confines of her environment during Nazi Germany. But you could hear her hedging. You could see her hedging about race, even about her own Blackness. You could hear her voice change a little bit when she talks about race and how that showed up in the Nazi Germany environment. It's a very interesting video. I'm about to put it in the chat so you can go and view it for yourselves in your own time. It was a very interesting, and she ultimately ended up as a teacher, as an educator, I believe in New York, the state of New York. So she has an experience now about the Middle Passage, about white supremacy and enslavement in America from our perspective. And again, you could hear sort of, in fact, I believe she said she didn't quite understand, Black and white and the depth of hatred that many Black people that she was encountering in America had towards white people and the pervading culture. And she suggested that changed as she gained knowledge, as she gained awareness, as she gained education. I swear that dog sounds like it's in my yard. And I might need to go check. Yeah, now, Wendy, if your mind is running wild while you meditate, again, that can be a direct result of unresolved shadow work. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be negative. All shadow work is not always about the negative. Sometimes in the trauma, you forget what's good. You forget what's positive. You forget what gift, what skill, what emotion you might have brought to a moment if the trauma overpowers that. But finding a way to still the mind, focus on a thing, focus on a goal, focus on traveling out into space and having that experience. Focus on something a little bit more specific, and then you'll find that the wild thoughts will either recede or will become more specific about the messages that you might be receiving, about the lessons you might be viewing. Just their sequence might not, and I'm being very literal about what you type, your mind running wild, because you're not that specific. So I get it, but yeah, you want to focus on something. You want to focus on something a little bit more specific in order to sort of achieve the results in meditation and definitely transcendental meditation that we seek when we go into the meditative state. In fact, books, instructions, that's the best place, in my opinion, to go. Transcendental meditation. It's actually a book that was published back in the 70s. So when you try and Google it or search it, you're going to have a whole bunch of other imposters show up on that subject matter, either because they want to, teach you transcendental meditation, get you to buy something. So scan past all of that. Somewhere there's a $3 book from the 1970s about transcendental meditation. I'm sure it's online somewhere. I actually have a physical copy. I'm sure it's online somewhere, and that's a great place to you learn to focus on your breathing, learn to center on specific chakras in your body, learning how to move energy through your body. We hear the chakras described more often as a wheel or spinning wheels, and there should be some clarity in that movement and that motion. And so chakras can thus be blocked or reversed or are not working in our best interest. And so those are all sort of the more practical components of meditation that the instruction of transcendental meditation brings. But once you grow past, knowing how to breathe, circular breathing, paying attention to your breathing and your heart, and can still the wandering wild thoughts, that's when real meditation begins, and you begin to see and experience things. I've done meditations to view my health from the inside of my body. I've done meditations to observe Earth and this space and this reality, but from heaven, or from outer space. I've actually seen heaven. I've seen heaven and I've seen hell, by way of transcendental meditative practices. And of course, your quartz crystals, your natural, uncut, unpolished quartz crystals can really amplify your ability to not only open up these channels in your own consciousness, but to be aware in the moment and to then bring that information back. And so using crystals like Herkimer diamonds, for instance. Herkimer diamonds come from very specific places in the earth. They tend to be multifaceted, multi-terminated, which is why they're called diamonds. Very clear for the most part. They might have carbon inclusions, water sometimes within them, but it's a great uncut, unpolished, untampered with stone to use in your meditative spaces, to not only open those frequencies, but to then be able to retain the needed and necessary information, and then to bring that back into your reality, into our awakened state of awareness. Greetings, Nina Lloyd. Greetings to anyone that I might have missed in the process. Chef Bougie, yes. Did you watch it? Okay, I'm glad. It's a really interesting. I had mixed emotions watching that video, and I had to keep reminding myself, this is a Black woman born in Nazi Germany, who does not have our experience, our awareness. And I think sometimes we forget that when we think about Pan-Africanism, when we think about globalism, when we think about indigenous cultures and communities. And so we sort of artificially sync up communities that might not necessarily have that connection in the real world, on the ground. So I'm always curious by Black people and people of color from other places in the world, and I ask them, what is their awareness of our experience? Now, it is a two-way street. I've got a lot of UK friends in Twitter, Germanic and French friends of all ethnicities in Twitter. And so it has forced me to sort of expand my comfort zone. So I'm much more aware about Brexit than I ever thought I would be. I'm much more aware about, police brutality in Nigeria and things that happen on the street than I ever thought I would be. And so we've got to be going back to that healing, the shadow work and the trauma. We've got to be healed enough to be able to create sacred space beyond just our comfort zone, beyond just what's happening here. I've also watched Chef Bougie in most recent days a video. There's a brother, his name escapes, Uhuru, searching for Uhuru, who travels back and forth to West Africa, and particularly what we might call the Voodoo regions. of West Africa. I think that was his first sort of footprint in YouTube in particular. His videos were primarily about Voodoo, about Dagbo, Honan in Benin. Yeah, search for Uhuru. And so I'm not sure where in the order of his videos it is, but somehow I ended up watching a video about expats who are now living in Ghana. And as I scroll his videos, yeah, he's expanded. He's talking about many things right now. Oh, wow, he even had the coronavirus 8 months ago. But anyway, it was about some 8 expats who had left America and were now living in, not Ghana, Sierra Leone. They were residing in Sierra Leone. So I don't see the video right now. I don't want to make that a distraction. But yeah, and so it too was interesting in terms of how we self-identify here, and then how we look at the greater ATR community in terms of co-relationship. We hear, I'm going to Cuba, I'm going to Haiti, I'm going, to initiate or have some ceremonies done and come right back. But we don't really hear or see often enough the demonstration of the communities sort of pulling together, working together. So his video stood out to me. These expats, one in particular, I believe he said he had been there 9 years now. And so are y'all watching my video viewing history or something? How is y'all seeing all the videos that I'm watching? Yeah, Eva, Arisha, greetings, beloved Arisha. Yeah, so it was very interesting. I also had mixed feelings about that because not all of us are ever going to afford to want to go to Africa. All of us are not necessarily going to want to go to Africa. And it is a question that I confronted when I was much younger, in my 20s, about traveling and making that sort of leap. And I just couldn't, ignore or overlook what exists right here in this new Africa. I didn't want the feeling that I was sort of leaving my community, leaving the problem behind and moving somewhere that was going to, romantically and magically sort of alter and change things. So their video speaks directly to that. How many people do make that journey and go to Sierra Leone or other countries and find that it's not for them, find that they cannot make the adjustment. I know why I'm mixing up videos, because I saw another video, a couple, husband and wife, who had also expatriated from the US to Ghana. And they were talking about the 10 things in particular that they didn't like about Ghana. Okay, y'all, I got it now. Okay, the first video is called Building in Sierra Leone. And what caught my eye was the title of this video and how he worded it. So the title of the video is Building in Sierra Leone. Only the best need to come to Africa. Only the best need to come to Africa. And then he goes on talking about dealing with haters. And the brother who's there is called Fourday, I believe. I'm going to put that link. Okay, the link I just put in, that's the Black woman born in Nazi Germany. This video is the expats who are now living in Sierra Leone. And while I agree with the title, let me be clear. While I agree with the idea, with the notion that Africa is only desiring of the best to come, but it also leaves open a whole nother arena of conversation about those of us who don't travel, who won't be moving to Ghana, who won't be going to Haiti, and how we can repatriate. We talked about this at the top of the show, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right here. Because ultimately, the goal for many of us is to escape the system, escape the oppression, to live a different reality. And a different reality doesn't necessarily mean that the grass is greener. Doesn't mean that they, don't have trauma and drama and things that they have to confront. And that's why I liked the second video, 10 Things We Hate About Ghana. I see this. 10 Things We Hate About Ghana. Negatives of living in Ghana. And again, this is a husband and wife team who obviously love Ghana, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a few things that irritate and annoy them. And one of the things that they talk about is the speed or lack thereof of getting many things done there. And so when we think about leaving the country and going to Africa, going to another world, there's a romantic edge to that. But I don't always think we look through and examine. The God's Initiative, help me any kind of way that you would like, beloved. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. And today, by the way, is Red, White, and Black Day. Some of y'all understand that code. Today is a Red, White, and Black Day. Osei Shango, Kaviosile. Yeah, so that's very helpful. Looking at, people who have made that journey, who have gone. I've had many relationships over the years with people who indeed have gone to Haiti and Cuba and Panama and Nigeria and Ghana and have had their experience and returned. So the expat video, both of them really speak to both the pros and the cons of making that sort of adjustment in your life. So when we think about just being happy, being healthy, what it takes to just survive in America, it opens up a much bigger conversation about shadow work, about healing trauma, about how you really believe the truth of your creation of reality. I said at the top of the show, I create and recreate my reality. I choose to be happy or not. I choose to be satisfied or not. I choose to be at peace or not, no matter what the weather, no matter what's going on. So, I don't necessarily think, escaping to, running from is ever the answer, figuratively or literally. But it most certainly opens up room for a greater conversation. Greetings, Craig Burns. I might be a little bit behind on my chat. Rebirth of Kia. Greetings, beloved. My mom is here. Welcome, beloved. How you doing? Yes, I appreciate you all for being here on a Saturday in the middle of your day. Goddess Initiative says she loves expat videos. She'd like to live somewhere else. She's going to have to divorce her husband, though. Okay. That sounds a little personal, but okay. For me, some people would tell you that New Orleans is like living in a third world country. And there are days that that's very evident, and there are other days that that's just something that we say. Some people, accuse New Orleans of being the northernmost Caribbean city. New Orleans has been accused of being the most African city in America. And so these might be some of the reasons why I'm here. Culture, tradition, and that connection to what came before, even as colonial connections. Because when I look, the French Quarter and the Germanic and and Italian and Creole and all the representations that show up in our beautiful architecture, historic architecture. People come from all over the world uh, just for the buildings, just for the historic architecture. In many of our older cities, Philly, New York, DC, Baltimore, Annapolis, often what's old gets torn down. You hard pressed to find anything old in California, in Los Angeles. Anything older than 10 years, 20 years is torn down, it's rebuilt, it's done anew. And I get it. You all have to worry about earthquake proofing and new technologies. But for decades, perhaps centuries, we didn't have sort of that flexibility. The laws here protect history first, sometimes overall things. I believe that shifted just a little bit after Hurricane Katrina, and it sort of opened up with all the abandoned and dilapidated and unkept properties. It sort of opened up an opportunity for people, both local as well as from other places, sort of come in and buy into and sort of redo to some degree, that culture. But it still exists, and it exists in the food and in the second lines and in the Congo Square, and in how we acknowledge spirit here. So, I would love to be in Benin in January. Of course, COVID-19. So maybe January 22. But I would love to be in Benin. But I'm okay being Black here in America. I'm okay healing and doing the shadow work and addressing the trauma that exists here. If we can indeed get to a place where we can have a co-relationship with our brothers and sisters and cousins and whatnot in other countries and other continents, that's great. And that's something that we indeed have to work for. It takes working and planning and building and developing years of trust and all this sort of thing. The brother in not Ivory Coast, in Sierra Leone, states in the video that he had built relationships with West Africans many years before he actually made that trip. But he knew that once he made the trip, he would not be coming back. He was that committed, to the experience. And so at this point, I believe it's 8 years, 9 years that he's been there. But I'm just as committed to, the many Africans and Haitians and Cubans and whatnot who come here to America to indeed hear our stories, to understand a little bit better the Black anger, the Black attitude specific to us here in America. When we do look at it from a globalized perspective, how slavery was brutal and wicked and evil wherever it was. But there's a unique system that took place here in the U.S., which still plagues us till this day. And until that system is undone and replaced, we'll still be doing shadow work, unfortunately, for some generations to come, and particularly when we look at the shenanigans that are taking place right now. All he's done is revealed deeper level shenanigans that would otherwise be hidden, that would otherwise go unnoticed. So I personally have taken note of the list of Republicans. I personally have taken note of those who have sided and agreed and have went along, and not just with the foolishness, but not denouncing sexism, not denouncing white supremacy, not denouncing racism, and actively moving to adjust that. Those are the things that keep me in America. Those are the things that sort of get in the way of any desire I might have to travel abroad and to see other, arenas of the world. We live in a sort of a delusional state as Americans. You know, we had the best country and we had the best resources and we're the best this, that, and other. Okay, great. But we can't then deny, you know, all the ugliness that exists just beneath. We can't deny the cancers that still exist within us, among us, and around us. So I would love to see Nigeria. I get an invite to Nigeria every week. I get an invite to Ghana every week, you know, and ancestors willing. Greetings, Shamafia. Ancestors willing, I indeed will make that trip. I indeed will make that journey, but it won't be because I'm abandoning you. It won't be because, you know, there ain't enough to do here. And it certainly won't be based in just business. I think that, again, that idea that Africa only wants your best also has something to do with capitalism and the deep state of impoverishment that exists all over the world, but yes, in Africa as well. And so there's this sense that, you know, you're going and you're coming to build a well, to bring cell service, to bring education, to bring something, you know, to sort of empower those communities. And I agree with that. But I also agree that we need that here, right here in America. Again, I ask you, how does a 14, 15, 16-year-old end up on the street with no family, no support, no income, no empathy, no sympathy, no concern? And it has a lot to do with why I don't trust you today. I don't trust you today. You know, you left me hanging, you know, when I needed you the most. You know, as a people, as a community, you've left me hanging. The irony of that is my blackness. The irony of that is my Afrocentricity. The irony of that is my commitment, you know, to this culture and this practice and this tradition, both locally and globally, that don't feed me, that don't support me. I have a small community, godchildren, initiates, those who are operating and actively participating in this tradition, who care whether I'm cold in the winter or hot in the summer. Got a godchild, I don't want to call him out, right here in this room. Who cares if I got something to eat or not? Who cares if my humanity is being acknowledged beyond just my voodoo? I appreciate PBS or whoever created that gift in Twitter. They respect the voodoo before they acknowledge my humanity. And so, you know, how does a kid end up on the street, nowhere to go? People are aware, the system is aware, the church is aware that there's a problem, a very specific problem in the family, a very specific problem in the household, and how does that not go addressed? And for many, you know, the alternative is the street, it's drugs, it's criminality, it's inadvertently getting caught up in the judicial system, inadvertently, ultimately hurting themselves and someone else. And so I say respect the voodoo. Respect the voodoo. How? It was the voodoo. How did you not end up a statistic? It was the voodoo. How did you survive all of that? It was the voodoo. Respect the voodoo. And my ability to call on my ancestors and God in those moments when I couldn't call you, when you all were not available to me, you know. And listen, I'm not talking about my mom and my daddy, my family. I'm talking about you, Black community, you, ATR community, those who, you know, Black Power and Black Lives Matter, and you holding it strong in social media. You holding it strong in Twitter and Instagram, in your photo and in your video. But what are you holding down in reality on the street? Who's looking after the kids right now on the street? Who's looking after the elderly right now on the street, in your block, in your neighborhood? We don't have to go to Jamaica, to Haiti, to Cuba, to Brazil, to the small, communities of the world to find something to do. There's plenty that needs to be done right here. Wendy Pillis is asking, what are my thoughts on forgiveness? Should you forgive someone who hexed you or do a reversal? It depends on what it is. It depends on what it is and what it's really about. Now, don't take this personally, Wendy. I'm just talking. Now, we didn't talk about some foolishness. That's just some foolishness. Don't. I've been there, done that. Been there and done that. Had a neighbor, pre-Katrina, white neighbor, and she and I and her husband were friendly, and we'd share a smoke or two every now and then. And I can't even remember what or why. But she found a dead bird in the neighborhood and put it on my porch. And so the battle was on. So the hexing thing was on. And ultimately, her caged bird died, her dog died, and she apologized, and we both apologized, and we both said we weren't going to, do that, and we stopped. But that's, at my age now, that's foolishness. That's foolishness. And hexing back and forth, in your workplace or with the other man or the other woman, that's foolishness. And so we grow over it, beyond it, past it. I don't think forgiveness necessarily comes in unless it is personal. Agreed. Now we're talking about something different. That need for forgiveness. And I think, a healthy person, maybe not the narcissist, but a healthy person kind of understands when they've crossed that boundary, and forgiveness is called for, and then we sort of, step into that. But you have to be willing to create the space, the sacred space, for the forgiveness to happen. So you have to look at yourself, your involvement. Again, what is it that we're talking about? What is this hex battle really about? And then pull yourself out of it. She says she's doing good, but a group of people hexed her and her children 2 years ago, but we're doing excellent now. Okay, well, give thanks, beloved. All is a blessing. How can one receive an acceptance to become an initiate of the house? Oh, beloved, that's a great question. First, I want to say I'm not easy to work with. I'm not easy to work with. Okay, and it's not because, and I have godchildren in the room, Hoodoo, cultism, a few others can tell you it's not because I'm any different off air than what you see here. In fact, it might be because I'm not any different off air than what you see here. So some of those, I have Asperger's syndrome. You've heard me describe a little bit about my past and being on the street at 14, 15, 16. So my social skills aren't the best. And what I mean by that is, indeed, I've been able to talk my way into circumstances, housing, employment, all sorts of things over the years. But I speak in a very direct and a very specific kind of way. I don't deviate a whole lot off the track. I think sometimes people are seeking conversation about voodoo, to be entertained about voodoo, to sort of explore their own ideas and notions and fantasies about voodoo. But when we start talking about initiation, there's very specific rules, protocols, there's very specific ways of doing things. So send me an email, divineprince at House of the Divine Prince. Be prepared to schedule the appropriate reading for initiating, and then be prepared to learn something new, to open your awareness to a completely different experience. And again, I think being that kid on the street sort of forced me to make that adjustment in a way that for the already established adult might come as a little bit more, of a challenge. I was already dealing with the unknown. I was already living in an existence where I didn't know what the next moment was going to bring, what the next minute was going to bring. And I was able to not only absorb the tradition during that time, but to be sensitive psychically and spiritually to what was going on around me as I developed proper application for Wendy the Hexen, proper application for performing, ritual work. So, it's not hard, rebirth of Kai. It's just challenging. It'll be like going to university. It'll be like going to college. The degree of bookwork and material and information that I'll share, that I will gift with you, while also teaching and instructing, on the applications. I think when people look at, witchcraft, Wiccan, New Age, astrology, psychic reading, there's especially in the West, there's a great deal of me, myself, and I um, meeting my needs, fulfilling myself. And I think we forget that when we look at ATR, pulling from indigenous, traditional African-based religious systems, it's about the village. It's about communal energy. And so Ashe is not possessed, it's not owned, it's not controlled, but it's shared and it's increased through the sharing. It grows through the sharing. It's not something that we sort of access for ourselves only and then sort of keep it hidden and tucked away. So, we're trying to reprogram a Western mindset now to absorb something indigenous. Greetings, Kayla S. from the Colorado. I lived in Denver for 3 years, maybe 4 years. I lived in Denver, Colorado. Beautiful place. Love the bike trails that begin or end in downtown Denver and then go up towards the mountains. Beautiful, beautiful. One of the most racist places I ever lived. But Colorado was very beautiful. The connection to the land and to the water and to the mountains, and being able to experience nature from that perspective was uniquely beautiful in Denver. Greetings, fitness girl. How you doing? All is truly and indeed a blessing, beloved. Thank you so much for liking, for subscribing. I appreciate that. I do. Thank you so much. All is a blessing. My phone lines are also open at area code 845-277-9143. 845-277-9143. I had not planned to be here very long today. I didn't realize there would be such an interest in a Saturday show. But I'm certainly grateful and appreciative for all of your energy, for all of your support, for all of your being, and indeed for your presence. Okay, yeah, that might be something else. If it didn't work, if it wasn't justified, that's something you got to grow beyond. Yes, forgiveness. To use your word, forgiveness would be the appropriate application. I also have appointments today on this beautiful Saturday, December 12th, 2020. So I appreciate you all coming in, having a little coffee with me and sharing a moment with me. But if no one has a question, a comment, or request, I'm going to just end the show. It's been a lovely hour. I look forward to connecting with you again next time here on this share take place on Revolutionary Voodoo or Always true. I'll share.